What is the one area that you see that where people really maybe have the bigger issues with credit? Is it overspending? Is it using too much on their credit card? I know with the SBA loan that you can't owe more than 50% balance on your credit card. So if you have a $20,000 credit limit, you can't owe more than 10,000. And I think that's pretty reasonable considering, we have pretty high head limits on these credit cards. But I do talk to some clients who are way over that 50% amount, and they didn't even know that that was the number they should be at.
Yeah, it's you. Whenever it comes to the scores, if your score is even over 30%, it's going to make your utilization almost in that red zone. So anything over 30%, I try to tell my clients, you never try to go over 30% on these credit cards
Ah,
because the 10%, anything over 10%, you're in the gray area. Of course, below 10%, that's the area that you should always try to be in. Under 10%, anything over 30%, you're in the danger zone. 50%, that's like a death sentence. So you always try to keep below 30%, and that's always the sweet spot. And it always will maximize your score too. And as far as what I've seen people always get in trouble with when it comes to their credit, it's late payments. It's not even having the balance. It's like they just miss a payment or they forget or something slipped through the cracks, which in today's day and age with automated payments, you shouldn't even have that problem. But sometimes when people don't have, they overspend and then they don't have the money. And people's priorities is what they focus on more. So if you didn't have to pay your light bill, cable bill, or your house bill or your car payment, but your credit card is going to be missed, people generally go for their credit card. They'll miss the credit card payment and they feel like, oh man, I'll catch up to it next time. But now that credit card is going to report to your credit as a late payment. And as soon as you start getting late payments or get charge offs or they get closed or they go to collections, it's just going to be like a downward slope.
yeah. Well, I think that's good to educate people because I didn't realize how lenient the SBA was on that 50% number where you're recommending no more than 10%. So
Yeah.
that's really fascinating. And so how do you help people with that with their credit repair? How do you get people to not overspend or to pay on time? If it's as
But
simple as that, just paying on time.
yeah, there's a kind of a few things that I try to teach and educate people on. One is that you have to come up with a budget and start managing your money better. A lot of people don't have credit card problems, they have spending problems. They're overspending the little money they have, and then whenever they don't have enough, they revert back to credit cards to um, make up the difference. And it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't be living on your credit card or exerting yourself or overspending. And then also too, whenever you do start cutting your expenses, start living below your means, stop eating out, and stop taking vacations when you can't afford them, stop buying these cars that you can't afford, and all this other kind of stuff. Whenever you start doing that, you will start seeing an excess of money, and then you need to start devoting that extra money towards getting out of debt, and then starting to look at your credit because a lot of people don't even like look. I've had so many people that will come to me and say, "Hey, I want to buy a franchise. I want to buy a business. I want to buy real estate." And I'll say to them, "What's your credit score?" And they say, "I don't even know what that is." You would be surprised. They've never looked at it. They've never have an understanding of it. And then a lot of that is just educating people on it. Like just because you don't look at it doesn't mean it's not there. It's there. You just have to deal with it, and you should be managing it at least once a month and just double checking and make sure there's nothing crazy on there. And if once you do look at it and you see that there's stuff on there, you need to address it. You need to start calling the bureaus. You need to start disputing this stuff off. You need to start, if you got a collections, you need to call the collecting agency and try to get that removed and or pay down the debt and or you have a repossession and all these other kind of things. You need to start being proactive on your account. It's not going to fix itself and it's not going to take care of itself. You need to educate yourself on that and you need to work with people who know what they're doing when it comes to those certain discrepancies.
So, you and I both sort of do something similar in the fact that we educate our clients about different industries. So I educate my clients about the franchise industry, and you educate your clients about funding and credit repair. And because that's the first step in starting a business. So sometimes when I work with clients, Richard, they'll say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about the money. Once I find the right opportunity, I'll find the money." but it's almost like getting pre-approved for a mortgage. You want to find out what can you fund. So when you do find your dream business, you can invest in that business. And so it's really the first thing that you should do. Your credit is the number one thing that you start with when you start looking at funding. And I don't know in your world, but in my world, if the better your credit score, the better the interest rates in most cases, especially for loans. Now with SBA, it's sort of a fixed rate, but you have a better chance of getting a loan the higher your credit score is. I'm really surprised it's as low as 685, but they do accept that, and but they also take a look at your assets and your net worth and your liquidity as well. But it is important. I think I forgot to mention this. You do need to have a spouse working. So whether it's a pension from a veteran that's retiring, that counts, or if you have a spouse that's working, you need to have some income coming in to get an SBA loan nowadays. But the good news is they don't require the equity in your home as collateral. So when you help clients with their credit repair, how long does that usually take?
There's a lot of different. I've seen it vary, and a lot of times what I'll tell people is this process. We dispute with the creditors, we dispute with the bureaus, and we dispute with anything that's on your credit. Because you'd be surprised. A lot of times people will have like multiple misspellings of their name, and they have
Oh,
multiple addresses on their name, which will, because you're showing a bad history of like moving around. They like your credit likes you when you have like being consistent in one place. Let's say you have like 12 addresses in the last 7 years. That looks really sporadic. It doesn't show stability, right? So a lot of them times
wow.
you can just dispute all these random addresses on your account, or if you have like multiple spellings of your name. This one guy, his name was Cornelius, and it was spelt different, even though Cornelius is a harder name to spell. And just by fixing his name, he had 21 misspellings of his name. 21.
Wow.
Once we fixed his name spelling, his credit shot up almost like 70 points because it was just hard for the credit to find where it belonged to. So once they,
Wow.
oh yeah, this is your account. Oh wow, this ain't your account. So they just start dropping it and just by fixing his name. But I always like to tell people, um, we do multiple rounds of disputing. A round of disputing lasts about 35 days. But we do about 6 rounds. So you're going to be about a 6 to 7 month ride. And that's if we get everything kind of where you want it. If we don't, then we'll still keep going after multiple rounds. But I've seen people go one round, 35 days, and everything they wanted to get off their credit was done.